In this video, we're going to walk through the troubleshooting steps of a situation where your irrigation system is stuck on. So the very first order of business is we need to evaluate exactly what's happening here. Is one zone stuck on, or is the entire system cycling through its entire program, going from zone 1 to zone 2, etc., but just doing it over and over? And that's going to tell us a lot about our troubleshooting steps and where we're going to start. But our methodology is always to start off asking a lot of questions of our homeowner, our client, or whatever. And we're going to ask, has anybody been there doing work? Has there been any new cable lines dropped into the ground, fiber optic, phone line, whatever? Any new landscape lighting? Has a landscaper or drainage contractor been there doing any digging? Any new plants gone in, etc.? And this is something that we always do. But after that, we're going to go and grab our multimeter and head to the timer. Now, if our problem is that the system is cycling through and running all the zones one after another and just looping over and over, chances are it is a programming mistake in the timer. The vast majority of timers only need one start time, and the timer knows to turn number 1 on, shut it off, turn number 2 on, shut it off. There's one particular timer, the Rainbird SST, to where you have to put in start times for every single zone, and it gets a little confusing. But I've got a separate video about troubleshooting a timer, and it goes over this particular subject. So I've got the link down below, so go through and watch that. But if it's cycling through its entire program, check your start times. If you turn your timer to the start time setting there, look, it's going to have number 1 and a time. Use your right arrow key and check start times 2, 3, and 4 if it has up to 4. And then click over to program B, C, and D and check every single start time in this timer. It's very common for homeowners, once they get to trying to program their timer, to put multiple start times in there, and the timer just thinks you want it to just go over and over and over, and that's what it's doing. In the absence of any erroneous settings, then we're going to check our timer. We're going to do our electrical troubleshoot on there. If it's in the off position and still trying to run, then replace the timer. It's something gone bad in there. Normally, you can tell if the timer, if it's on the run position, you can tell if the timer is running as normal and you want to just check it. But if it looks like it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, it's probably a setting. So let's talk about the situation if it's just one zone stuck on. Now, when we asked our questions of the homeowner, has anybody been there doing any work? Now, this is something I've seen, I don't know, at least 2 or 3 times, to where another contractor has been there. They've trenched through a bundle of pipes. In the original trench, there may have been 3, 4, 5 different pipes. I've seen up to 8 or 9 pipes in a single trench before, and it gets wildly confusing in that situation. But I've seen where a contractor has trenched through a whole bunch of pipes, and then when they put them together, they connected the main line with a zone line, and now it was just running continuously because it's hard piped in, right? And so that's relatively rare, but I just try to bring up these, weird situations just to keep in your mind that weird things do happen all the time. I guess somehow I've always been the guy to get all of these weird repairs or whatever. But that's something to look for. And so we're also, in this situation, if it's one zone stuck on, we're going to do a standard timer troubleshoot. So go through all of the steps of that, checking the voltage and so forth on that. The timer may have just failed on that one zone and is holding it open all the time, even with the timer in the off position. So that's why you want to do a thorough timer troubleshoot with your multimeter on that. So beyond that, let's walk out to the valve, find the valve for this zone that's stuck on. And the first thing you do when you find it is just reach in and check the solenoid and make sure it's all the way tight. Now, you ain't got to be Hulk Hogan cranking this thing down, but just make sure it's closed all the way. And if it has a bleed screw on it, make sure it's closed. Sometimes just with the normal running of the system, maybe a little bit of water hammer, these solenoids and bleed screws can actually vibrate open. And this has happened quite a few times that we went out and solved it immediately just by reaching in, closing the solenoid. Of course, we go back to the timer and turn it on, just make sure that zone is actually working. But Check that first. And now we're going to rebuild the valve. So a couple of things could be happening if this valve is stuck open. Maybe the diaphragm is torn or damaged or distended by just being old or whatever. That rubber can stretch out and no longer close. Maybe the spring has gone bad. The spring doesn't actually hold the valve closed, but it does help it close. So if it's failed and gone bad, it just may not have the oomph just to ultimately close that valve after the zone shuts off. So this is all going to be handled in a rebuild. But there's also another situation, like what actually holds a valve closed when it's supposed to be off and there's pressure in the system is water held in the chamber above the diaphragm. It's the pressure of that water, not the spring, that's holding your diaphragm closed. And how the water gets up in that chamber is a little tiny tube that runs from the bottom piece, your valve body, runs from the chamber, the main inside chamber, and it runs up through that and into the bonnet. And that's how just a little bit of water under pressure holds that valve closed. You may have a little particle of something stuck down in that tube. So when you disassemble your valve, take a little tiny individual piece of wire and try to just gently plunge that out and see if something, comes out. You can blow into it to see if anything comes out, to clear that out. But my advice always is, when you disassemble a valve, have another one, a fresh new one with you, and just rebuild it. Unless it's some super high dollar valve, which you're probably not going to be dealing with on a residential system. But just if you've got it disassembled, just replace everything that can be replaced. The diaphragm and everything above it, and even that little ring down below the diaphragm, just replace everything that'll come off of it. And if that doesn't work, it may be that the bottom piece, the valve body, has a clog down in that tube, and in which case you're probably going to have to cut the valve out and replace it entirely. But if that's, just one zone stuck on and running, it's probably that. If it's not a timer, it is the valve. And if it's the timer cycling through all of its zones, almost certainly it's a timer problem with the settings or an electrical failure. And hey, if you're a field technician and you're watching this and you know of some crazy situation that you've seen that has caused this that I haven't mentioned, then please leave a comment and let us know here. I'm not the guru that knows everything. I'm the guy that's been in the field for 20 plus years, and now I'm giving you the knowledge that I've got, but I'm not trying to pretend like I've seen every single thing that could ever possibly happen. And if you've seen something different, let us know. Pass along the knowledge. We appreciate it.